Terry McAdon of AMD, a stalwart of the industry, and that's meant kindly. Tell us the top 2 or 3 things about the new driver release of interest to gamers.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all driven by gamers. It involves a lot more than just gamers this time around. But the key focus when we started planning this 12 months ago or 13 months ago is what feature set are gamers after. So we pull different publications, we look at forums, we work with websites like Kit Guru to understand what the market's after. Turns out that the number 1 feature that our users were requesting for was a game capture and screen capture capability. And we had something before that wasn't exactly ours. It was through a partnership. It was called the Gaming Evolved Client. We made the conscious decision that we would take our expertise in that area and we would deliver a highly optimized, highly user-friendly DVR application or game capture application that also has the streaming capability in it. We call that functionality ReLive. And to be quite honest, it's the feature I'm most excited about, and I've seen it progress through the last 12 months to a point where I'm extremely proud of what we're going to launch on December 8th.
And indeed, it's given it the drivers their name.
It actually has, yeah. So it was funny. So when we were last year, we came out and said, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to have a software release every year, and the annual edition of it is going to represent a shade of red.
I must confess, when you did that and then you got red cameras, and I had visions of Scarlet Crimson, and I was trying to think how many other russet.
Absolutely.
And I thought, this hasn't got legs. You've gone sideways. You've changed your approach.
We haven't changed our approach. What we did is we just extended this name for 1 more year. Ruby's out there, Mahogany's out there, and all these other shades of red. The difference is that when we were looking for a name for this screen capture and game capture capability, ReLive was an appealing name to us for a couple of reasons, right? It's actually called Radeon ReLive, so the R at the beginning of it kind of played nicely to it, and it also lets you relive your gaming glory moments.
Right.
At the same time, we were thinking about, well, what are we going to call the next shade of red? We got the user satisfaction numbers in there. And the user satisfaction numbers were actually a 4.5 out of 5. This is users on our website that download our drivers, have a chance to play with it, come back 30 days later and basically give it a 1 to 5 star rating. This year was 4.5 out of 5. So at that point we said, you know what, there is something to this Crimson brand. Perhaps we could make it ReLive for 1 more year. So that's kind of what we did. There's no need to change the name. So for 1 more year, it's the ReLive edition, and it coincides with the ReLive functionality or the DVR capability that we have in this year's release.
From the horse's mouth, right there.
So the other thing, Leo, I mean, you know, if I'm going to give you the 2 big features for me, there's about 20 features or so for gamers in this release, ranging like things for VP9 acceleration for Chrome playback. So when you're doing YouTube, it's a little bit smoother. To a new installer, we redesigned our installer. Uninstall is part of that as well. Clean install. There's a bunch of what I call smaller features that come together to form a nice package. We have borderless FreeSync, which is another thing that a lot of gamers that were using FreeSync were looking for. So your game doesn't need to be full screen to take advantage of FreeSync. It could be borderless FreeSync, which is in theory a window mode. There's things like that, but the 2 key things was the ReLive that we talked about, and the second thing is something that we called Radeon Chill. So for people that follow AMD and what we do in the software side very closely, they may recall that at the Polaris launch timeframe, we announced that we actually purchased a company that developed this application called Chill, and they had another one called Boost. The company was called Hyalgo. We acquired that company and we took their engineering assets and their IP assets and incorporated it into our offering. So at this point, we took some time, we validated it, we combined it into our whole driver architecture to the point that now Radeon Chill is a big feature of this release. And what Radeon Chill simply does is it saves power. Results will vary absolutely like anything in tech, but what we're seeing in games like World of Warcraft is a 30% power savings with the absolute same experience.
Right.
So that's kind of what Chill is bringing. It is focused primarily in some of the esports type of games. It's going to be very popular in places where power savings is very interesting. So although we're in Europe, we're in London right now, it turns out that in China, the iCafe market is huge. That's these, the cafes where people go and play games and spend many hours there. And one of the most important aspects that the iCafe owners require is actually power savings. Right. So this feature will now save these iCafe owners a lot of power.
So it's the people running the facilities rather than actually. Okay,
absolutely. So you can expect to see some significant power savings, but as a business owner on the other side, the purchasing decision may change at this point in time because simply you're saving X percent of your power bill every month.
As a quick question, putting you on the spot. If you're buying a new monitor, should you be more interested in more pixels or HDR?
So to be very honest, if I'm looking at a monitor right now, the first thing I'm going to look at is FreeSync.
Obviously, and then moving on to the second feature?
The second feature is, I don't think HDR is at the forefront right now just because simply for the lack of content. So if you're the type of guy that likes to future-proof and you're going to buy a monitor, it turns out that monitors is one of those things that you buy for your PC that has a very long lifespan.
Well, exactly. If you buy now, you'll be using the thing in 3 to 5 years' time. Yeah.
So if you're going to buy it now, I mean, the games are coming, the content is coming. You may potentially pay for a premium for it, but there's no problem for me to recommend that if this is what you're after and you do plan on keeping it for 5 to 10 year lifespan, which is quite typical for monitors. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, HDR is stunning. It's very rich. The contrast that you enjoy takes the monitor to a different level. And for gaming, I find that particularly of interest.
Now, when you buy obviously more pixels, you go from full HD to 4K or whatever it might be, or 5K even. There's a downside, there's a balance because you've got to drive the pixels, you've got scaling, you've got all sorts of considerations. Is there a downside to HDR? If you buy, looking to the future, you buy an HDR monitor, is that just something you just pay a bit of money for and it will come in handy, or might there be a downside?
No, I mean there's no downside. HDR has basically got 2 formats, and you can basically rest assured that the games are going to basically support either one. There's not going to be a format war at this point in time from what we're seeing. So getting a good high-resolution HDR monitor with FreeSync capability is certainly a worthwhile investment if you're a gamer. I mean, if you're gaming, you don't want to have a standard 768 resolution laptop screen. You want to enjoy it, right? Gaming is a passion, a lifestyle for many, and it's certainly, when you think about how you spend money on coffees or anything like that, if it's your passion, then you certainly should get the best that your budget can afford. Now, of course, I'm not recommending everyone needs a $5,000 or $4,000 monitor.
About £5,000 these days, the exchange, right?
Absolutely, right? Yeah. But my point is, it's all about budget, right? So certainly, the one of the best things you can ever have on a PC. I shouldn't say that because I don't sell monitors. My company doesn't sell monitors, but it's absolutely a monitor.
No, but the HDR is more as a visual thing. Also, in terms of the other quirky things in the drivers, personally, I cannot stand HDMI. I use DisplayPort. I think anyone who uses HDMI is out of their mind, but there we go. You actually have a feature, however, to spot dead HDMI.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to, sometimes the backstory is more interesting than the actual feature itself. So our big boss of graphics, who you guys may have heard, Raja Kaduri, sent an email actually around Christmas time and says, "Hey guys, I'm plugging in this system I have onto my TV and nothing's lighting up. What's going on?" So we had the chief display architect, we had a whole bunch of super brainy guys, engineering types, trying to determine what's going on. And it turns out it was a faulty cable. It was a cheap cable. So what we said is, this is ridiculous. Why do people have to deal with this frustration when perhaps we can find a solution? So what we've done is we have this new feature, which we kind of call the display connectivity experience. And what happens with this feature is you plug in a cable. If it doesn't light up, we kind of detect that the monitor hasn't lit up.
This is lighting up on the screen rather than on the port. It's not the hardware port, on the screen.
On the screen. So your screen does not light up. You plug in your PC to your TV. You want to watch a video or something. It doesn't light up. We detect that. And so what we do is we put some logic into it where we start setting different modes through the display cable and it just keeps dropping down. So this is the maximum capability of the monitor. We detect it doesn't light up, so we just start throttling down until at some points we'll find the place where it just lights up the screen and says, "Hey, you've got a bad cable. You may want to investigate." So little things like that, it's a focus on user experience. It's trying to tackle real problems that people have. Is it the most exciting feature to talk about? No, but if you're that guy with that bad cable, I've just saved you, 2-3 hours of frustration and phone calls and not understanding why your monitor's not lighting up.
Excellent, and that's the view from the front line with Terry McAdon, a man who lives inside drivers.
Thanks a lot, Leo. I mean, we always love talking to Kit Guru, and hopefully we'll see you again next year for another big release.
Mahogany. It'll be mahogany.
Perhaps.
Or russet.
Thanks a lot, Leo.
I'm with Andrej from AMD, who's going to give us his job title first and foremost.
Well, I'm a corporate vice president of software for Radeon Group in AMD.
Now, you worked with AMD previously, you left and you've returned, and you've been back, I believe, about a year. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. I'm a repeat offender. I was there for 10 years and then left for about 6 years and then came back a year.
So did you leave AMD or ATI?
I left AMD. I was with ATI, then kind of switched to AMD during the acquisition.
And how much of a mess had they made of it while you were away?
We needed some fixing.
Right, yeah. I mean, it'd be rude to ask what was the biggest thing you had to fix, but you've had a year, so you've obviously got your feet under the table in that time. So what was the prime focus?
Well, the prime focus is really getting our user base happy with our software. And that's what we worked on, starting with Radeon Crimson Edition. And our user satisfaction numbers are amazing. We actually do that user satisfaction survey, and on that we have 90%.
I saw a 4.5 out of 5, and I was wondering whether that's lots of 5s and the odd 1, or lots of 4s and lots of 5s in the mix. It doesn't really make much difference. I wonder if it's mainly happy people or a few very unhappy.
Mainly happy people. We actually don't have that many unhappy people at all, because the driver stability and features in the drivers have really kind of went up. If you look at the survey, I mean, we are asking number 1 to 5. I mean, who is going to pick 5? Only extremely happy people, and we are kind of well above 4 now, so that's amazing.
Okay, now the name of the new software is Radeon software, and we've got a ReLive edition.
Yes.
The name seems to be centered around internal changes within AMD to bring together the professional and the consumer side of things.
Correct. So we last year launched Radeon Software Crimson Edition. This year we are launching Radeon Software Crimson ReLive Edition, and we are basically continuing the success of last year's launch. With that, we are getting to the biggest software release ever that we released, with extreme set of very rich features, but also joining together the professional world and the gaming or consumer world. So basically the message that we are sending to our customers: with our software you actually can work, you can play, and you can create.
Now, I've just sat through 102 slides of a presentation, albeit the first 90 were the meat and drink and about 10 were the backup, which tells you bits and pieces of what was going on. It seemed to me that from the point of view of gamers and the end user, that actually it was quite far down the stack when you got to the things you go, oh, that's an interesting feature. So, for example, the actual name ReLive or ReLive?
ReLive.
Right. ReLive is what?
Well, it's the idea is that it's a rerun of the Crimson release, coming back with much more.
And the streaming and recording
well,
function.
so there's always a kind of wordplay in that. There is a DVR component that we are launching with this driver, and that's going to allow professional gamers to stream their games. But we are actually opening this up really with a very user-friendly interfaces to everybody who wants to stream, show their friends what they were doing.
And previously you did this in cahoots with Raptor, and now it's integrated into the driver and it's all AMD.
It's fully integrated, it's all AMD, it has superior performance, and it's very user-friendly. Together, I mean, it actually follows the idea of our Crimson drivers, where we actually try to get a very simple, very nice, simple to use user interface.
Which it certainly was that. It was a few buttons. I mean, I was looking at the thing thinking you might be looking at having a second stream, you know, your Twitch streamers and so on, and for having laptop people and then have a second screen so they can see what they're streaming and such like. And this was 4 buttons, click, go, and it was
make it simple, yes.
Certainly was that. So the ReLive function, which is video streaming for your Twitch types, but also it has an aspect so you can show technical support, what on earth you're doing with your CAD package or some such, which I must confess is of less interest to Kick Your readers being more gamers, but it comes to the same place. There's obviously a concern about things like overhead if you're streaming and recording video.
And that's particularly of interest to gamers. So if you want to use it in a work situation and kind of provide some tutorial, or you want to do some support using it, it's not that of a concern. But we are really trying to create our drivers for all types of users. And for gamers, we actually use years of our video experience, years of our encoder and decoder experience, and we are doing this DVR with absolutely minimal performance input to the game. So the goal for any professional gamer or any casual gamer is not to notice that they are actually streaming.
Okay, so essentially it's just free, and you click the button, you record or stream, and there you go. The statistics on the likes of Twitch are just frankly scary, in the sense that for every one person actually playing a game, there's 3 people watching and such like. There are dedicated channels to this.
There, in general,
TV channels. I mean.
You can actually see that in any LAN party. You actually see a number of people watching good gamers. So it's people like watching football, or they like watching basketball, simply because they really like to identify with somebody who does something very well. So it's actually not that unusual to see many people watching somebody doing something in a very special way. So we are enabling that with gaming right now, and we are enabling that for everybody. So not only for professionals using very complex systems to do it. Right now, with, as you said, 4 buttons, you're getting there. You are displaying what you're playing, and you're virtually having no performance impact to do that.
On the gaming front, DirectX 12, AMD claims a significant advantage in DirectX 12. What so far, how many games are using DirectX 12? How many more games are coming along? Is DirectX 12 at this point in the takeoff, or is it now taking off and becoming, how significant is DirectX 12?
It is huge. In general, modern APIs are huge. So what AMD did, we actually created Mantle to show the world that the low latency, low level APIs are the way where within software you can dramatically increase the performance. And with that opening Mantle to the world, the next interface coming out was Vulkan. Both are through Kronos. Vulkan and Mantle are same type of interface. I'm proud to say that we believe that we influenced Microsoft into going down the DX12 path with the very low latency, very thin API. We don't only claim the performance crown on it.
AMD repeats claim for DirectX 12 performance crown. The business of using the Radeon software name across professional and end user stroke gaming, where do game engines come into the professional end of things?
Well, that's the new world. Basically, you expect things to be moving in front of you. It's not anymore enough to just design something and then slowly rotate it, or kind of shift it left or right. Through gaming, you learn to expect that you can move through objects. You can be in the world that you create. So creators right now in the professional world are expecting that. So a lot of professional applications are going the way of, we would like to use the game engine so we can actually show the world that we are creating. Just think about architecture. You design a house, you want to show the house to a client. You can do that by number of snapshots, or you can create the walkthrough, and that's the game engine. And that where our professional advantage comes in is with the software Radeon Raise, where we actually bring the professional quality rendering, basically a photorealistic rendering that can actually integrate into all that process and provide the real-time imagery linked to the gameplay through the game engine, which actually transforms to the professional world.
And does this extend through VR, which obviously is one of the buzz phrases of this year particularly? The business about having your VR headset, your HTC Vive or whatever, you go to an estate agent or a car dealer, put the thing on, and then you're looking at your shiny new car and sitting there making brum brum noises and such like.
It definitely does. With Liquid VR, we are enabling that kind of experience. VR it's amazing. It's so popular, so interesting, but I can say it's in its infancy. We are actually yet to explore the capabilities of VR, the capabilities that software and hardware on the graphics side are going to bring the new experiences there.
Now, Kit Guru readers and viewers being PC gamers, do we consider the likes of your VR for your PlayStation 4 to be real VR? It's obviously more than cardboard and a phone. Is it true VR? Do you get an extra level of the experience when you're actually using a proper PC?
Well, I think we should look at VR as a level of experience. And you get some sense of VR when you put a cardboard or a Samsung device, because you feel that you are into that world. But then you get to the next levels and you start getting into true immersion. So today, what true VR offers, or what we call true VR, is 1K per eye at 90 frames per second. What we want to see is 4K per eye at 120 frames per second. What we want to see with next editions of our hardware and software is maybe 16K per eye, where you're going to start losing the feeling that there are pixels in front of you. It's going to be a really immersion. What we want to see in VR is a sound. So with sound rays, again, something that we launched on our GPU Open site as an open source, you can actually have a positional and sound, and you can have the sound that is true audio that allows you to render the audio in the context of, let's say, glass surfaces or the carpets in the room, because in VR 50% of experience is sound.
Indeed, and the ray tracing for audio has historically has had a very high overhead. If you, depending on how many bounces you're doing and such, like if you're bouncing off 12 different surfaces and the sound fades away and such like that, can have a monumental hit. And you're in the curious position, of course, because a huge part of your install base is consoles, APUs. So you've got a massive spread of hardware. You've got the console gamers right through to the high-end multi-GPU gamers, and you are having to cover that spectrum rather than just one segment of the market. Does that make life easy or difficult?
Well, it's the console and the PC take slightly different software parts, but the key point is that within our hardware we actually can enable asynchronous compute. So with that we can actually run like 16 sounds of audio, 16 sources of audio in complete ray tracing, parallel with your video experience.
Right.
And that's what we bring, again, as a hardware and software combined with AMD.
Now, as I said, I sat through a huge number of software slides, and somewhere very, very close to the end was one that really jumped out at me, which was you have a clean install in your new drivers, which is one of those, well, why didn't you do this before? But the idea, instead of having to do a multi-step ripping out the old driver and then installing has been easy for ages, but ripping out the old ones if you hit a problem, not so straightforward. Here we are. Is this truly a one-click clean install, uninstall, install process?
Yes, it is. A very simple, very user-friendly, and visually very appealing, very fast install. This is what we have in this new edition of software.
So no need to worry about Windows 10 safe mode and all that other...
You shouldn't worry about any of that. We have you covered.
One of the slightly more quirky features that popped up was Radeon Chill. I've experienced when I pause a game, the thing's sitting there doing literally nothing, and the thing's howling away at 240 frames a second, and the heat actually gets higher. Radeon Chill regulates the frame rate. What's the thinking behind it?
It's a very innovative feature. This is how we in software can do something very special. We are about performance and power, and actually balance of the two. So of course our hardware provides a lot of that, but then in software you can identify when the game is not doing much, and you can reduce the frame rate without affecting the gameplay, but then allowing you to actually save the power, save your battery life if you're playing on a mobile system, and even more, by actually reducing the frame rate and saving the power, you cool down your graphic chip, so you can run fast immediately after that, the moment you start moving.
One area where you've expanded within your drivers is Wattman power management, which now has been expanded from Polaris to include GCN. It's the same for Polaris. Is that simply a thing you've had time to work on it and it's now working on older GPUs, or is there some other wrinkle that we should be aware of?
It is exactly the same feature as we launched for Polaris. It does take time to make sure that in all of our graphics families we have the same feature set. So right now we are launching it across the board. We launched it for Polaris as the prime feature, to enable the advanced users to play with power. It is a complex feature, and I have to admit that sometimes I really don't understand all the details in it, but it really allows you the full control of all the capabilities of power control on your card.
And in terms of backward support, the new Radeon software goes back to Radeon 7000, doesn't go back as far as Radeon 6000, which I think we can agree is about 99 point something % of all graphics cards out there. So it's not only for Polaris.
No, it's not only for Polaris, it is for the older products and the products coming up as well.
AMD's been working with developers across the piece, including open source software. One particular example is you have some DX12 benchmarking software which is coming out to coincide with this new driver. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. Yeah. In general, we are working very closely with the open source community, and we insist on open sourcing a lot of our IP to enable developers to use it and create new and interesting stuff. So the DX12, a benchmarking tool that we are open sourcing right now, is an interesting example of how we are not afraid of guys like you going out there and verifying what is in that benchmark and adjusting it to really get the proper performance measurements of all the DX12 products out there.
Excellent, and is free.
It is free, it's fully open source, ready for you to use it and change it.
Excellent. I'm Leo Walter for Kit Guru. This is Andrej from AMD.